Hello everybody, it's your boy Jmulls, and today I want to talk about the inevitable World of Warcraft console port. With the Midnight Alpha here and people being able to get in, we are really seeing their new direction for the game. Less buttons to press across the board, add-on incorporation into the baseline experience while also preventing add-ons from reading combat data during combat scenarios. Basically the add-on purge, and the general sentiment seems to be, yeah, they're definitely preparing this game for a console port. I think it is absolutely inevitable. I have thought that it was inevitable for a while at this point. I've made previous videos on this subject, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see that console port before the end of Midnight. I don't mean 12.0, I mean before The Last Titan, or they're lining it up for the release of The Last Titan, which honestly kind of feels a little bit more likely to me. I wouldn't be surprised if one of the big changes we see over the course of Midnight is them adding baseline controller support into the game itself, at least to a higher degree than it currently is, so we don't have to rely on something like console port as an add-on to make the game enjoyable with a controller. I wouldn't be surprised if we see that at all. Now, why would Blizzard do this? I think it's very obvious as to why Blizzard and World of Warcraft would go in this direction. Microsoft probably told them to, and even if they didn't, it's money on the table. I don't know how popular World of Warcraft would be on console, but you have to imagine they would at least accrue new players and more people than they currently have, and that's more people that are likely to get things from the online store and the shop, or just people that are willing to pay a subscription cost for World of Warcraft and buy a new expansion. It's money on the table. No company is going to let that just lie. World of Warcraft has done it for the longest time because it was, well, big enough. But now that it's under Microsoft as a company, I can't imagine Microsoft wants to have an IP and a game as big as World of Warcraft and just allow that money to be on the table. Especially when Microsoft themselves have their own console with Xbox and are now porting games to other consoles just so more people give them money. In this age of games going multi-platform, I can't imagine Microsoft would be content with allowing World of Warcraft to continue as solely a PC game and experience. I always think PC will be the primary way to play World of Warcraft, unless, I don't know, we have a WoW cinematic and times change. But just look at what they've done, not just in Midnight, but also in the War Within. They have made abilities and spells that enemies cast in-game far more visibly clear and distinct, and then in Midnight, we're losing out on a bunch of buttons themselves and baking some abilities into buttons that change into other abilities, all the while simplifying that core gameplay loop a lot, and not only that, preventing third-party add-ons from giving you a distinct advantage in gameplay. That is a massive element, in my opinion, for the inevitability of World of Warcraft coming to consoles, because you can't just port the thing to, like, Xbox, PlayStation, maybe even the Switch too, who knows? You can't just port the game to those consoles while allowing add-on usage to be as rampant, and things as powerful as things like weak auras and Plata to be allowed on the platform that most people already play World of Warcraft on, and give it a massive distinct advantage compared to the consoles you're trying to port it to. The game will just be seen as a lesser version on those consoles, and let's be fair here, it's the World of Warcraft community. People will find a way to figure out if you're playing on PC or console, and you will probably be ostracized from a lot of groups and content because of that, unless you find like-minded individuals. But even then, assuming that's not even a factor, it's going to be if things didn't change, but assuming that's not a thing, you don't want a version of your game to be deemed lesser when you're trying to advertise that and get people to buy it and play your game when it's now available to a whole bunch more people. That's just bad marketing 101. Like, if the Black Flash made the WoW console port, he would do something like that and then go, "It was me, Barry. I'm the one who allowed add-ons on PC while we ported this to console." I mean, it's the same reason, or at least one of the reasons, Final Fantasy XIV doesn't do the same thing when it comes to officially endorsing and allowing add-ons for the game. You can't allow one version of your game to be deemed the far more optimal way to play the game, because you don't want people playing the game feeling as if they're playing a lesser experienced or more sanitized version of a game, as if the very platform they are on is hamstringing them in some way, like they're fighting a warrior in PvP. One of their stated goals with the class reworks of of Midnight, or at least one of the things they're keeping an eye out for, are classes and specs that have way too many actions per minute, to where you're pressing way too many buttons in too short a time. I don't think this is the only reason they're looking into elements of gameplay like that, but I do think it is one of the slices of the pie. Imagine trying to play some of these specs on controller right now. I mean, you can if you want to go download console port, but for instance, one of the ways that Final Fantasy XIV does it is if you want to have access to other hotbars, you have to hold a button down, and then on a radial wheel, you pick the action bar you want to use at that point in time. Then you press your button. Can you imagine trying to juggle that with the pace that World of Warcraft has for its gameplay? Final Fantasy XIV at least has like a 2.5 second GCD. And yeah, you gotta like weave OGCDs in there as well, but like, my god, World of Warcraft is just faster. Can you imagine how hectic that would be? Can you imagine how bad a lot of people's DPS would be if things didn't change and they eventually did port the game to consoles and a lot of people started playing with controller? Can you imagine how more annoying random groups would be with just a bunch of people doing like half the DPS they should? It's like, look, random content in World of Warcraft has always had the issue of some people just not knowing what they're doing. Absolutely. But the other issue would start to run into are people that do know what they're doing, but they're physically incapable of keeping up because of the platform they're playing on. That's not a good experience for the other people in the party, but it's also not a good feeling for them as a player when they know they are holding everyone back simply because of the platform they're playing on. That is a feeling I can't imagine Blizzard or Microsoft would ever want to allow to exist at all in a world where World of Warcraft comes to consoles. Officially. That becomes way less of a problem the less you actually have to cycle through hotbars. It is a simple solution, but sometimes, kiss. It just applies. Keep it simple, stupid. Now, the core issue, the main worry that I'm entirely on board with, I share it as well. I might be getting lucky because the specs that I generally play don't seem to be affected too much by this, in a negative way at least. They go too far and they reduce the complexity too much in World of Warcraft to where everything feels sanitized and basic and generic and just unseasoned. I think that's a really good way of putting it. No one really wants these specs, or at least I can't imagine the vast majority of people would want these specs to feel too unseasoned, to where just pressing 1, 2, or 3 buttons 99% of your time and the rest is just kind of there. I do think World of Warcraft has gone in a way to where it's become way too complex of a game, way too intimidating to start, and for a lot of people just way too fast-paced to where it's just allowing people to age out of a game they do not want to age out of. Especially for a player base that is getting older. This is becoming more of a thing with each new expansion. Trying to keep up with being as optimal as you humanly can when it comes to your spec, your rotation, your priority list, while also dealing with the pace of play that a lot of these encounters can throw at you, that is just simply too much for a lot of people. Some people eat it up, absolutely. We all enjoy different things. For instance, I really enjoyed the Kaivesa question mark encounter with patch 11.2 of World of Warcraft. I thought that fight was pretty dang fun. A lot of people that I saw react to me playing that just went, yeah, I can't keep up. It's a tall order, isn't it? Not only remembering your priority list, not only remembering your rotation for your spec, not only keeping up with actually pressing the buttons for your spec at the pace that some of these specs call for, but also being able to react fast enough to the mechanics being thrown at you constantly by a lot of these encounters. It's a natural consequence of World of Warcraft being a game that has gone on for as long as it has, because over the course of time, the player base has gotten better at the game, or at least some players have gotten so much better at the game, to where if they want to keep up a relative feeling of difficulty, the game just has to go faster and call for more from the player. But that leaves behind so many different individuals that want to play the game, that want to enjoy World of Warcraft, but no longer feel as if they can keep up. And I don't see Microsoft or Blizzard really allowing themselves to continue ostracizing those people because, again, it's money on the table. Where instead of leaving money on the table and just not picking it up, now you're actually putting it back. You know, I was just about to call it a soft reset of the game, but it doesn't even feel like a soft reset. It's kind of just an overall reset for the game. And it really does feel as if they're almost remaking World of Warcraft from the ground up, just in the back, and slowly over the course of time and over the course of multiple expansions. I mean, heck, just look at what they're doing, what they talked about during the deep dive in the Q&A, and in some of these interviews. Over the course of Midnight and The Last Titan, we're going to revamp parts of the old world, Quel'Thalas and Northrend. The housing zones give us a sneak peek as to what an old world revamp would truly look like for things like Kalimdor and the Eastern Kingdoms. I wouldn't be surprised if in the expansion after the last Titan we just have a revamp of Kalimdor and the Eastern Kingdoms. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Heck, in Midnight, they're showing that they're able to add on or modify existing locations of the game with newer zones. Because Quel'Thalas, that's just beyond the Plaguelands now. It's no longer just way off the coast of Outland, technically. No, you can walk to Quel'Thalas now, at least in Midnight. Look at some of the more minor and small updates you may not really consider all that much to be too significant, but just consider how much they have to have modified the back end, the code of World of Warcraft to accommodate for things like this. Housing is a great example, but also the new fabric physics. You can look that up of people walking into giant curtains and they move naturally. World of Warcraft as a game is in a process of complete transformation, and it wouldn't surprise me that at some point in this process they want the game to come to consoles. It's money on the table, they're companies, they're not going to allow that to just sit there, especially a company like Microsoft where they're already invested in hardware with things like Xbox, where they are now of the opinion of porting their games and their IPs to rival platforms simply to sell more copies. Do you think they would do it for games like Starfield, inevitably things like Halo as well, and not for something as big as World of Warcraft? I don't believe that. And like I said, I think we'll see the console port, at least them doing something with controller support by the end of Midnight, and when we get to the last Titan, they ported the console full stop, that wouldn't surprise me either. At this point, I don't think it's a matter of if they're going to do it, it's just a matter of when. And I think it's sooner rather than later, which is why they're going all in when it comes to things like completely changing the pace of game with all the class reworks of Midnight and also calling a lot of add-on support. It's not a matter of them being able to meet people in the middle. Or like, does Blizzard have to go as hard into add-ons as they're doing right now? Yeah, they kind of do. Because if their ultimate goal is a console port, then the current state of the game cannot be allowed to continue in their eyes, almost certainly. But this is where you come in. Leave a comment down below with your thoughts on World of Warcraft potentially coming to console. Would that be something that excites you? Would you be interested in trying it out on console? Would you even change platform or start playing the game if it came to console? I'd love to hear your thoughts and hear your opinions and hear your perspectives. And while you're down there, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. And if you want to hear more of Blizzard's philosophy when it comes to these class reworks, which are giant and massive, and they're going to change the way that you play World of Warcraft, you should check out this video right here for more. Stay safe, everybody. Have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again.